Hello, everyone. Come on in, come on in, come on in. Yes, welcome to season 2 premiere of My Vulva and Me. My Vulva and Me is the web series created for, by, and about Black women. And today, just like we did the first season 1, today is going to be no different than the amazingness that we have before. We have 3 of the baddest, and when I say the baddest, I mean the baddest Black women in the business as it relates to Black women and sexuality. We have Dr. Shemeka Thorpe, Dr. Wendasha Jenkins Hall, and we have the Goody Howard. It is November the 3rd, or should I say Volvember the 3rd, which Goody coined, and we will get into all things Black women and sexuality. And I am so excited that you all joined in with us today, and we're just going to go ahead and jump right on in.
My vulva, vulva and me. My vulva, my vulva and me. My vulva and me.
Our theme song was created and sang by none other than Brandy Briz Grove. Be sure to check her out at the Briz and Rashad Experience on Instagram. They also have a really dope show coming out, I believe, Friday. That's called Does It Still Slap? I think that's what it is. But correct me, Briz, if you're watching in the comment. So I want to go ahead and bring our guest for today on so we can jump right into this great conversation that is very necessary. And I just want you to know, be forewarned, this is for Black women. So if you are a guest among us, it ain't for you. We ain't doing no code switching. We ain't doing no explaining, none of that. This is for family. But if you came along, then sit back and watch and don't try to cause us to do no extra labor than what we're already doing, all right? Because this is for Black women. But you're welcome, but just know that everything here is for us. But we can go ahead and bring our guests on for today. Hey, Grace.
Hello.
Hi, how are you doing today? We was gonna do a quick check-in. It's election day. I understand that's
It's Tuesday.
It's Tuesday. Okay.
I can't do none of that other stuff. It's Tuesday.
I completely understand, but I just, I wanted to, take a minute, take a beat. Those of us watching, if you're watching, and take a deep breath, unclench your jaw,
right?
Settle in, because we finna have a good old time.
Yes.
Get all that nonsense. We finna have a good old time. All right. So if you are unfamiliar with how My Vulva and Me works, every time we start an episode with a game. If you are familiar with the intimacy firm in any way, shape, or form, I live for a good game. So tonight's game, our icebreaker, is called Behind the Music. And the way this works, ladies, is I will give the plot of a song. And you will then be telling me to go ahead and jump in as you get the answer and tell me what the name of the song is. The bonus point, I know Goody, this is right up your alley. You get bonus points if you can name the artist as well. Okay? So, first thing, easy one. This is level 1, easy. A young lady walking down the street.
Miss Booty?
A young lady is walking down the street, and she is bothered by the advances of a gentleman suitor. She
Slow down by Bobby Valentino.
Nope. She feels like the audacity of him.
You calling the bitch?
Nope.
You calling the bitch?
Nope. The audacity of him to waste her time in his pursuit.
I don't want no scrub.
As he is a passenger.
I was thinking that.
That's very good. It was okay. So next one. 2 young ladies. I'm not 100% sure on their friendliness, but there is a conversation between
the boy is mine.
Nope. And one of them wants to let this other young lady know that the wardrobe of the man that they share in
Woman
common.
to woman, Shirley and Barbara.
Huh?
Woman to woman, Shirley and Barbara.
Here it is. Hello, Barbara. This is Shirley.
Yeah.
See?
He said the clothes on his back. You crazy.
And one and last. Oh, good. So that's 1 and 1. Come on, Dr. Shemeka, you got to get this next one so that everybody.
Okay.
All right. So this last one, he is coming home to tell his partner that he doesn't want to cheat on her, so he's going to leave her instead.
Oh,
Say songs.
I say it again.
Donnell Jones, where I want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, say songs. I don't want to leave.
That was good. Everybody snaps all around. Yes, that was good. That was our end behind the music. So speaking of behind the music, the title of this episode is WAP. And I just want to know that from the moment that song came out, first of all, when I first turned the song on, the beat, I was like, okay, so I was sold from the beat. Then I got into the lyrics, and of course, being a Christian sexologist, everybody wanted to know what my thoughts were on the song. So I purposely did not say anything about it because I don't have time. Like whatever WAP means to you, whatever it did for your spirit, don't like I didn't get into it. However, what I want to know first thing from you all and your respective places and all the work that you all do, why was WAP such a big deal?
Huh. Because you have Black women talking about their pussy, like really, at the end of the day, not trying to be vulgar, but that's really what it is. So we're of course used to overt sexuality and rap music, right? You have your Nicki Minaj's, you have your Cardi B's, Meg Thee Stallion. So we're used to them talking about that. Lil' Kim, Foxy Brown, take it back there, and Kaya. However, it was like a bold statement to say I have some wet stuff, but at the same time, that song and even the video didn't center the male gaze. As you notice, it has a lack of men in that video, right? So it really is praising and talking positively about their sex game and how their sex game is making all the people that they sleep with go wild because what they got is bomb. So it's a different take, because I think a lot of times when women are talking about sex or when men are talking about women's sexuality, it's very male centered, right? But this song was different, right? It wasn't male centered. It was, Black female centered, other than girl, Kylie Jenner. But other than that,
I didn't know who that was when she was
I didn't understand her cameo at all. I didn't understand her cameo.
They're friends. That's why. Culture and the little Kardashian baby, they are friends, and so their moms are friends. And so it wasn't an unnatural placement if you understand they're off camera live. But within the context of the song, I didn't know who she was. First of all, so much work. I didn't know who she was. But yeah, she was in there because they're friends.
And so
in real life.
And just pick back up on what Dr. Wendasha was saying about the lack of the male gaze. What then would you all say, and Dr. Shemeka or Goody, either you can answer, what then would you say to someone who says that it was done for the male gaze and that it was created, rooted, and like for a woman to speak about their sexual prowess and their skill set and their experience and run down their sexual resume in that way, that is it is in fact for the male gaze, but wrapped in women empowerment.
Well, it could have possibly, the video was shot in a very appealing, very seductive, very sexual, like, what I'm saying? It was shot in a way that it possibly could have been for male gaze in that way, but what it didn't have was male permission. Mm-hmm. They didn't have the men's permission to go out in this way and make this song and make this video. Men were not involved in the way that they wanted to be in this project. So it may have been for the male gaze because we don't even really know how pervasive that is, right? So it definitely was for somebody's gay. However, they did not have male permission. And when you have, it's okay to commodify sex, it's okay to talk about sex, it's okay to do all of those things and talk about women and make us objects. But when we objectify ourselves, that's when the problem comes in because we try to reach it. We have power when we do it to ourselves. And they're not here for that. So that's what didn't have the male gaze on it, with the empowerment aspect of we're going to take control of our own narrative. And yeah, we still going to talk about the sex, but we're going to do it.
Right.
And I think it has an assumption that like you only have sex with men.
What's that?
One second. If you could mute your, see if you can mute your.
Oh, my mic was muted.
So good.
It was already muted.
Okay, now Dr. Shemeka, you go ahead. What you were saying?
Yeah, I was thinking it had a lot to do. I think we're also assuming that people are having sex with men too. Like we don't know that everyone in that video is just having sex with men. So I think that's one thing too. And I think also it was kind of some pushback with Cardi just being sexually explicit and saying, you know, like, I have wet ass pussy, like that's what it is. But back in the day when there were songs about, you know, sexual debuts and people standing up in it, it wasn't an issue because it wasn't so explicit. But like these songs have existed for a long time.
Right, these songs, and they was so interesting to me because these songs have been around for so long. So I could not fathom why this particular song. And then also, Meg always raps about her body and her sexual prowess. Cardi always raps about her body. So was it the fact that they decided to team up to double down on the Meg? I couldn't understand it. But then, just as this phenomenon in general, like the message of the song of having a WAP, what does that mean, either culturally or just for women in general? Like, why is it even something to brag about? Goody. Yeah, go ahead, Goody.
I think it's a value thing for us. And so because sex is already what we have to offer, we're socialized, you know, keep your dress tail down and your head up. You hold on to that prize until you get married. And we're socialized in so many ways to value our sex like it gives us a place in society, or it gives us our inherent value. So when you have a WAP, then it's even more valuable than just a regular P. It's a WAP. You know what I'm saying? So it's a way to separate yourself from the pack. Now that seems like something that's done specifically for male gays, because that's what we do typically in society. You know, women are socialized to be, you know, pitted toward each other for the male gaze, for it to be chose, or whatever the case may be. But I think WAP has an inherent value to us as, okay, well, we're already going to get chose because of our ability to have sex or whatever. So we got to have this WAP to make sure that they know that this is not that regular degular, you know, that we are special in some way.
And yeah, I think it's just, there's nothing wrong though with someone saying that they have bum ass sex. So I just don't understand why that's something that has to be secret, right? If you feel like you're a bum, if you feel that you got what, it's okay to talk about that, right? And if you are the one, you know, doing the objectification of yourself or the commodification of yourself, that's fine, right? And so it's that song really, well, okay, I know how we are, you know, in our sexuality world, we think it's okay, right? We're like, why isn't this normalized? But we do have to understand at the same time, you know, Black women especially have been taught to be respectable, right? It's not something that you're supposed to go out and say that, okay, I have this, I'm that. You're supposed to be a lady in the streets and a freak in the sheets type thing. So that's really what kind of threw a lot of men for a loop, right? A lot of men, they rap about this all the time. Black men rap about getting bum ass head or bum pussy and all of that stuff, hot so wet. But when a woman says, hey, I got that wet, all of a sudden it's a problem. So that's really what I was confused about. I was like, well, isn't this what you said you want? Right? Isn't this what you said that you desire? So when a woman is saying, I have that, now it's not okay. Now it's, oh, I don't want my woman or my women to be going out bragging about what they have. And I think that's because a lot of times Black men feel as though they have some type of ownership over Black women's sexuality, right? It's only for them to enjoy, right? And so I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, we're not supposed to enjoy it. We're just the tools of the pleasure. We're not supposed to participate in that shit. You know what I'm saying? And so that is a big part of it. And like you said, we're supposed to be respectable. Black women specifically are socialized not to brag on ourselves. We're not, we achieve all these accolades and shit, but we're not supposed to let people know we have them. We're just supposed to be these trophies that are complicit in the pleasure, but don't participate. You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, that is bananas to me. And we don't get it's cool to talk about good sex and talk about women that have good sex, but when the women with good sex start talking, then that's where we want to draw the line. And I think also we are in the information age, right? So everybody got to write a think piece about everything, right? And so then you have so many more people with so much more perspective. Now the women have a vehicle to express themselves and their cosign of this song. And the folk are looking around like, oh no, wait a minute, y'all like this? And then it's, what about the children? Right. What about the children? Like, you cannot be. That's a teaching moment. First of all, they shouldn't be playing the song on the radio because you have to mute half of it. But if the song comes on the radio, then it's just like, okay, that's a teaching moment. If your child asks, well, what is a WAP? Or what is any song you listen to is an opportunity to talk to your children, since every parent wants to be the go-to for sex education for their children. Any moment is a teaching moment. And if we embrace it as that, and a celebration of womanhood, and a celebration of sexual pleasure, and a celebration of prowess, instead of trying to, compress it down. And like I said, Oscar Wilde has a quote that says, everything in the world is about sex except sex. Sex is about power, right? This is an illustration of that, because we're talking about the expression, repression, and oppression of sexuality. And that's what it was. You're muted.
Oh, I'm unmuted now. There we go. Sorry. For one thing I realized is that I did not give you all space to introduce yourself. So please forgive me for that. So we're going to circle back. And if you can start with Dr. Shemeka, then Goody, then Dr. Wendasha, if you all can introduce yourselves, tell the people who you are, what you do, and why you are uniquely qualified to have this conversation.
Okay. Hi, my name is Dr. Shemeka Thorpe. I'm on Instagram as Dr. Shemeka. I am a sexuality educator, co-founder of the Minority Sex Report, which is a platform to provide representation in sexuality education, primarily to Black and Native American women. I'm also a sex researcher, so research is my passion, and I'm currently a researcher at the University of Kentucky. I am qualified to have this talk and to be here because, well, this is what I've dedicated most of my life to, and this is what my research is on, is Black women and sexual pleasure and just sex positivity and relationships. So thank you, Brittany, for inviting me here.
Okay. See, I'm just over here like, yes. I don't know if I'm muted or not, so I don't want to make too much noise. So my name is Goody Howard. I'm a sexologist, educator, and consultant. Goody Howard, MSW, MPH. Because I'm on here with all these doctors and PhD candidates. You know what I'm saying? So I have to, one day, I will have the doctor. Okay. But I'm a sexologist, educator, and consultant. So I teach pleasure-centered adult workshops, interactive sexual pleasure and health workshops. I do anything, like I teach dick riding and pussy, blowjobs, and all of those things. And then I also teach professional development to help educators. So helping professionals, educators, counselors, therapists, healthcare providers, and things like that around sexual health equity, access, and sex positive response. So I'm uniquely qualified to be here today, first of all, because Team WAP, you know what I'm saying? But it's just the whole thing. But I just think I'm uniquely qualified to be here because this is the work that we do. This is the work that we have, like Shemeka said, we dedicated our lives to. And who better qualified to talk about this specifically and different things that WAP can mean and does mean and how it shows up for us than the people that's doing the work.
Okay, everyone. So I am Dr. Wendasha Jenkins Hall. I am a sex educator. I am, I guess, the founder, the creative mind behind the Sensible Sexpert on Instagram and also on Facebook, which is a platform that's geared toward Black women and femmes, providing honest, accessible, sensible sex education or sexuality, should I say education? Because a lot of people just think sex is the mechanics. Sexuality education to Black women and femmes. And I'm also a sex researcher. And so I've been in this field for about 16, going on 17 years now. I started when I was a teenager, so that's kind of, I got that. But yeah, so I am a sex researcher by day. I am currently a fellow at a certain government agency. I'm not going to put that out there, but my focus during the day, I do focus on HIV prevention in communities of color. And my work right now specifically is around HIV prevention and barriers and access to HIV treatment among Black women and Black trans women in particular. So I'm uniquely qualified for this because, like I said, I've been doing this thing for 17 years. I've worked with the teenagers when I was a teenager, college students, grown folk, church folk, everything like that. And of course, my work has always centered on Black women and femme sexuality. So like I said, not only the mechanics of it, so not only just HIV prevention, STD prevention, unattended pregnancy prevention, which is important too, but understanding that our sexuality is a lot more than disease. It's a lot more than negative outcomes. So that's why I am uniquely qualified to have this conversation.
Oh, y'all decent or whatever. Go ahead. Here's the thing. Like at the intimacy firm, I posted the other day, had gotten an influx of followers because of it's the clip for me. I mean, the people were all in a tizzy. You understand? I mean, and here's the thing about this shirt. I created it for us, like sexuality educators, like the Black sexuality family, like we tight, and you all support literally everything that I do. So I was like, this could be another teaching tool. It's a little colloquialism mixed with education, blended. Because y'all know that the golden clit shirts, they've been around. Like this is not a new conversation, right? This is not the new conversation for the intimacy firm, but just. Right. Nothing about putting a word on there that just sent everybody to a tizzy. So I'm so appreciative that it happened when it happened. And I was able to have a conversation earlier on a Love Hour podcast about why folks are so up in arms about why the word click. Somebody even said in the comments that it was porn. I said, when organs become porn? So what you say? I mean, and pulled out all the credentials. Sister, she worked for DCIS or like whatever her child welfare agency is, and she worked with children who've been triggered by sexual abuse and all of this stuff. And I said, this little shirt gonna do that? And it's like, and if you out and the kids see it, what you gonna tell them? Well, if they can read, you gonna tell them it's a body part, and you gonna keep it moving. Like you don't need to get sexual response cycle with the 5-year-old. I like folks looking for something to be mad about. Yeah. They really are. And so that's why I made it my point not to really respond to the questions about WAP, because I'm like, no, I'm gonna just let y'all rest in this discomfort. So Goody, you did a thing last year, you do all the things. But Goody does all the things. Last year, you did a thing by coining the month that we are in this year, November, Volvember.
It is Volvember.
It is Volvember. And for here, forever and again, once more, until Kingdom Come, it shall be Volvember.
Yes. And December is December. The Volvember took legs. The December
right. But Volvember, that's important to me, not only as a sex educator and the work that we do, but Volvember, November 2017, my mom passed away. So you don't know what, I don't think I've ever shared this with you. So having Volvember, having something to focus on all month long.
No, ma'am.
No, not gonna do it.
Come on.
Focus on all month long to keep my mom off, not necessarily off my mind, but to keep me in the good spirit that she will want me to. She will want me to be about my business. She was about her business. So I appreciate you for that, in addition to what you contribute to our work. So why, all the things that we've talked about, why is Volvember something that needed to happen?
For me, first of all, I didn't know that. That is amazing, and I'm so glad that I could participate. Like, even in the background, I'm excited about that. Volvember was important to me because the global narrative around pleasure is dick-shaped. The global narrative around safer sex practices is dick-shaped. Masturbation is dick-shaped. All of it is penis-shaped. And so I wanted a specific month to highlight all things vulva, the clit, the vagina, all of the things about this set of reproductive organs, this set of pleasure organs that is not for the male gaze. It is not for heteronormative people to, like, it is solely an appreciation of the vulva in and of itself, inside and out of pleasure context, health context, hygiene, maintenance, cultural context. Everything went global, y'all. I was so shocked. People were tagging me and hashtagging Volvember because I aggregate. If they use the hashtag Volvember, I actually have something running in the background that will aggregate all the posts that have that Volvember hashtag, and I'm going to start putting them to where they automatically populate to my newsfeed. But I was getting them from all over the world. And it just made my heart so happy because we are in America, and America is very ethnocentric in the fact that we are all, the world is just America. It is not the rest of the world, right? So to see it be something that is global lets me know that it's something that needs to be appreciated worldwide. Because, like I said, the global conversation around pleasure is dick-shaped. So what about us?
Yep.
What about, and I think that it's something important for people that don't have vulvas to focus on and celebrate and participate in, because those of us with vulvas don't know half the shit that's being posted during Volvember. So the people that don't have vulvas and are specifically sleeping with people with vulvas need to know so they can love and appreciate and embrace the glory that is before them. And so I just wanted to kind of shift the narrative, if not just for 1 month, just kind of shift the narrative and take control so that people have, they're always, all month long, they're looking for the hashtag and things like that. But I really wanted to make it something that we celebrate our bodies in not just a womanhood way, but in a way that anybody with a vulva can do.
Yeah.
Because all people with vulvas are not women. I don't identify as women, and I think I include that in some of the stuff in the original content that I share for Volvember, because we don't have these conversations.
Absolutely.
I want to make sure that when we have a starting point, you can go share the post and be like, "Oh, did y'all know this? What y'all think about this?" I want it to be that.
So when we think about that, I'm just piggybacking off of that. This is for everybody, what are some of the most pervasive and problematic stereotypes as it relates to women and pleasure that makes something like a Volvember necessary? So in your time in this work, what are some of the most pervasive and problematic stereotypes about Black women and sexuality?
Oh wow. So one that I'm starting to see a lot even in November is that the vulva should is subsequent vagina. Well, because some people that is two
Right.
different things, folks out there. So that the vulva is supposed to look and taste a certain way. Um and so that's what I'm starting to see a lot of. Really interesting. So I guess people have this idea, based on porn, seen in porn, about how a vulva is supposed to look, right? So when you're watching porn or whatever, even some of these Instagram models, even though they have a teensy weeny bikinis, you don't see any hair, right? Everything looks like it fits within that little strip that they have, It's very
How do they do that?
it's very tight and things like that. Some people can't fit in the Victoria's Secret panties.
No, I'm like, how did you tape it? Did you do it?
Yeah, and some people's hair pubes are going down their legs, right? Also, the taste of it. People are so concerned about how they taste, right? Like, I taste. I gotta alter what's going on down there in order to please my partner. So that is getting in the way. Those stereotypes, but that comes from slavery. That comes from early 20th century. Jim Crow, when black women in films were taught that their bodies were disgusting, and so need to be clean and kept up. Hence, why back in the day, a lot of black women in films or people with vulvas were using a lot of Johnson Johnson baby powder right down there, as we know now. I just saw a comment. Yeah, Victoria's Secret panties are not for people with the fat lips. Okay, your lips will fall
off the side.
Okay, will fall aside. Normalize boy shorts and granny panties. Okay, anyway, okay, because sometimes them little thongs. Anyway,
I'm angry with it. I'm not even fucking doing it.
So yeah, but like I said, we were taught that our bodies were not clean. We were taught that we were dirty. So in order to combat that, we got these hygiene practices, right? Saying that, we need to be shaven, we need to be cut, we need to smell good, we need to taste good in order to appear a certain way and to order to please our partners. There's nothing wrong with shaving. There's nothing wrong with waxing, but you have to understand why you're doing it, right? So are you doing it because you like the aesthetic? Or are you doing it because you feel like, I need to clean myself, or I need to be clean, or to prevent the smell and things like that? So I think that's a big stereotype. And there are even vitamins now that you're supposed to be taking that can change
your flavor, give you a fruitier.
Yes, because I've been asked about that, but I was like, I have no experience with supplements that are supposed to change the taste of your vaginal fluids or even semen or whatever. Because it's also geared toward penises too. But yeah, that's a stereotype: the look, the taste, and the smell of a vulva.
And it's just the capitalism of it all is just y'all ain't realized as long as y'all been living here that they want to convince you that you are less than in any way, shape, or form so that they can sell you some stuff. You didn't realize that yet. I mean, and not that we've all arrived. I fall victim to some stuff. There's some stuff that I buy, not for my vulva, but there's some stuff that I buy that I'm like, I do need the air fryer. And you're right. I do need different olive oil because my food does suck without it. So we all acceptable to it, but I'm not low though. You not low. I see what's up, but I'm gonna buy it anyway.
I'm gonna buy it anyway.
As long as you're aware. Dr. Shemeka, you were getting ready to say something?
Yeah, and I was just going off of what Dr. Wendasha said, even on TikTok. So I'm on TikTok as a little ghost account, and they have tons of Black women that are talking about different cocktails or juices you should make before you have sex and drinking them. And people have even been asking me, should I do this? Is this something that I should be doing? And so at first I didn't even know what they were talking about, but it was constant pages after pages after pages of just different things that people are saying you should drink beforehand, how often you should drink this, So I think that's one thing that's we're seeing now that's going to affect younger generations because a lot of younger generations are on TikTok.
Yep. Yeah. I think too that pleasure, we don't have pleasure. I was in a group and they said something about it's a 50-50 shot if you get an orgasm. And the lady said, I thought it was a 50-50 shot if it feels good. But this is a grown ass married woman. And I had to slide in her DMs. I was like, sis, But we don't, again, the conversation around pleasure and orgasm and all of that is dick shaped. And we don't even when we're talking about our children, we talk to our children, our young boys about masturbation and stuff. When we start to notice they take longer showers, or, if the sticky, crunchy socks in their room and stuff, we have a conversation with them, right? We don't talk to our little girls about it though, but they're doing it. And so there's so much shame around it because we're not having conversations with them. So they start to hide it. They start to internalize it. I was that little girl. And I think that is a big part of how we carry that into our adult selves, as well. And then we don't think about, the pleasure and all of that, or he don't make me come. He don't make me come. My partner don't make me come. That's your orgasm is your responsibility. But we don't have conversations about that. We don't have conversations that are orgasm, about the 18 different kinds of orgasms that even exist. Right? So when we're not having conversations about vulvas and the pleasure and the upkeep and the hygiene and their natural state, on top of all the messaging about, the misogynistic messaging and the patriarchal messaging and the racist messaging and the anti-woman messaging, all of that is just like stockpiling onto our already internalized, socialized dysfunction about our bodies. So we have to be the light in the room this past this knowledge, because like Shemeka said, TikTok ain't getting it. Somebody got to be on TikTok with the truth.
With the real stuff. Right. And so, Goody, that's a good segue into my next question. And you kind of answered it a bit, and Dr. Shemeka can chime in. What do you find, or in your experience, or even just as your personal experience, because my Vulva Me is a storytelling series. So it's about your professional experience, but even just your lived experience as Black women. What do you see is the biggest barrier to Black women living freely in their sexual expression?
Religion.
Say more.
I think a lot of times, a lot of Black women, especially being raised in the South, I'm thinking about Black women that are in my generation, older generations, like my mom's generations, my aunt's generations. A lot of them feel a lot of sexual shame because of religious practices. So maybe they went to a church where someone shamed them and told them that they shouldn't have, sex before marriage, or that masturbation was a sin. And so many people, especially in older generations, may not have even masturbated before. So they don't know what's pleasurable for them. They don't know how to tell their partner, like, how to achieve an orgasm for them. And so I think some of that has to revolve around religious upbringings, especially being in the Bible Belt. Like, I was born and raised in the Bible Belt. So I know, that some of the practices or teachings that some churches do have, especially being Christian. And so I think that's a major thing. And I've seen that even in some of the research that I've done, especially with adolescents. So I was looking at a sample of adolescent Black women, and the main thing that predicted their sexual guilt was their religion. So if they thought that religion was important in their life, they were more likely to feel sexual guilt, and they were less likely to think that sex was supposed to be pleasurable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I was having that conversation earlier about folks, Christianity definitely has this bad reputation for being sexually like repressive and even oppressive in ways. And not most of it is warranted, but then there's some of it that's, now we talk, but especially the Black church kind of sometimes carries the bag for white evangelicalism. And it's like, we ain't had nothing to do, like, you're not going to see the Black church picketing, abortion clinics and stuff like that. That ain't us. And not saying that we get it right all the time, but some of the stuff, the mainstream media, like, that ain't us. That ain't our, we got some other foolishness, but that ain't it. But the reality of it is, though, for me, and you all know in my particular context, sex for me is a God thing. So the sexual repression that is experienced, we carry something that's not ours. We owning something that's shame in that way that doesn't necessarily, belong to us. And so if I can offer something just to the question, even though I don't know if you're allowed to answer your own questions, but I'm gonna do it anyway. But I think one of the bigger barriers is just a slight sidestep to what Dr. Shemeka is saying, is that it is the misappropriation and the misapplication of religious doctrine causes that issue, because the thing is that the impact of religion reaches to those who don't even practice.
Correct.
That. And so it is a societal thing that just like just the scriptures being used out of context, and folks using the Bible, weaponizing the Bible for their own, to push their own agendas and preferences, as opposed to like actual biblical truths, which is problematic. And we can't, and then for again, at least my context, it's a matter of we're fearful of, we want to keep a certain way until marriage. And so demonize sex because you won't want to touch it. But just like the cookie in the cookie jar, the more you tell me I can have it, the more I'm going to want it, and the more crafty I'm going to get to try to reach it. And then with regard to sexuality, the more risk I'm going to take to try to get it. Up. A lot of the things that I did or experienced sexually is because I wanted answers to some stuff, and I didn't have nowhere to turn to ask the questions. So I was like, oh, well, let me go figure it out on my own. And so I think that we could change that narrative and change that conversation, because when we move far away from, the church doesn't talk about sex. So the church is talking a lot about that. If you look on Instagram, every pastor that has some type of sermon series, book, YouTube, something or other about sex. But
they talk about relationship, though. They're not talking about
there are a number of there's a number of pastors who are talking about the actual act of sex, but I would say they need a little more. They need to partner with some of us to get some of their language, a little better. That's what I would say. But Dr. Wendasha, who would you say?
I was going to say, not to step on any toes, but I go a lot to say the church is talking about sex, they're just not speaking loudly about it. And what I mean by that is there's a lot of dissonance that is going on. So you have the doctrine saying, yes, no sex until marriage. You need to wait till you get your Boaz, wait on him, that good man that God is sending you, and then you'll live happily ever after. However, when I say the church is really talking about sex, look at the congregation of the church. It is predominantly, the black church. Let's talk about the black church. It's predominantly black women. And who do you see in the pews with black women? Black children. So somebody in the church is having sex, right? A lot of people is in the church having sex, hence why you have a lot of women and kids in the church, and you have those, like, leadership is predominantly male, right? So sitting up in church saying amen to the pastor when he's preaching these sermons about what relationship it is, and we're saying amen and going along with it. But at night, we're going home. We're seeking the comfort of our lovers or whoever, right? So you going home, you getting dick down, and there are babies being created, but we want to act as though it's not happening.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a double. So that's what creates guilt, right? So you're in church, you're praising the Lord, you're taking your communion, doing all of that, but then at the end of the day, you're going to go home, you're going to go lay up with whoever you're laying up with, right? And there's nobody speaking to that, because we're saying that you need to wait till marriage. Well, back in the 40s, the 50s, or whatever, it was easy to wait until marriage when you had that structure where people were getting married at 18, 19 years old. Now you have people who are 35, 45, 55, never been married. So are you saying that these people are now destined to live the rest of their lives, or God preordained their lives to be without sex? That it was in his will that they would never experience sexual pleasure in any form? Is that what you're saying? So, like, those are conversations that we have to really start having, right? And a lot of times, even like with religion, it is far-reaching, but a lot of black women feel like they're going to find their spouse or their mate or their partner, whoever, within the walls of a church, right? So, we have to really start thinking about that. We have to start thinking about God in a bigger way. We have to start thinking about God outside the walls of the church, because the church in itself, like religion, a lot of times can be keeping people single if they desire to get married or desire to be in a partnership. Of course, it's keeping people in that guilt, because it's like, Lord, I've been here every Sunday since I was 2 years old. I'm not 45. but Lord, I'm lonely and I'm horny.
Mm-hmm.
What do I do with that? Right? How do I? Because I don't care what you say. There's only so many cold showers you can take, and Jesus is not your boyfriend, right? I know you can pray and you can ask him for guidance, you can ask him for deliverance and comfort, but them sheets are still cold at night, right? So we have a lot of that going on. Of course, like Brittany said, it is misappropriating the Bible and what God is really saying to us, right? And even if we're not church going, you have a lot of like Black millennials who've left the church, but they're still, surrounded by the doctrine that they grew up in. You can't really break away from it.
Yeah, they're still living it.
They still tend to form relationships based on that religious doctrine that we grew up with, right? So, like I said, that's really a big barrier, So I know we talk about religion because religion is a Black community.
Yeah. But I mean, even when you think about it, because also for those of you, the Intimacy Firm is a faith-based organization. So a lot of my intimacy insiders are people of faith who have purpose in their heart, and their heart's posture is to honor God through abstinence until they are married, which is 100%, fine. I am no longer married, and I purposed in my heart to honor God until I remarry, and that's 100% fine. What I think the issue is, though, the struggle is not having a safe place to even say what you just said, Dr. Wendasha. Like, I'm yet holding on, Lord. I'm on the battlefield for you. I keep my hand to the plow, but these sheets are cold, and so because not to say that these sheets are cold, and I may go have sex, but I'm not that I'm going to go do it, but I at least need to have a safe space in my church, in my, faith concept to say, I'm struggling, and not feel like the natural processes of my body, when my body does what bodies do, that there's a spiritual shortcoming in some way, shape, or form. I think one of another thing I would say about the biggest barrier that I wasn't even thinking about it coming to a conversation about religion, but we see how pervasive that conversation is that there's so many, I want to say phenotype, but I feel like that's not the word. And I hate when people use big words and then they use them wrong. There's so many pictures of Black women, let's say that. Word? I don't know, because either way, there's so many types of Black women out there that we are trying so hard to get either in close proximity to this one or far away from that one, because I don't want to be connected to be envisioned like you to see me as if I'm that type of woman. And so those who are abstaining, if I ask these questions, or I don't want to look like this person, or if I'm already married but I'm not having the kind of sex that I want to have, I don't want to push for more because I don't want to look like this Black woman, because I've been told that this type of Black woman is this, is that, and the other thing. And I'm this one way in this box because that's what is holy, that's what is right, that's what's honorable. And granted, you read the word narrow is the word. I'm here for all of it. However, the diversity is the work of God. The differences in how we look, how we feel, how we move, what works for us, what doesn't work for us is the work of God's hand. If he wanted us all to be the same, he would have made us cookie cutter people, and he did not. So I think one of the that we are trying so hard to be something that we don't rest in just who we are and what comes with it. And we also try to get other people to believe and co-sign what we believe. Y'all love me. I know y'all love me. And me saying, Goody, you and I have had this conversation. I said, oh, no, I'm not having sex until I get married. And that's like that. You, as my good girlfriend, you like, girl, but you respect me enough to. That's my thing. And the thing is that I don't need to convince you that my abstinence is okay.
No, you don't. I mean,
and then people who aren't having sex, you don't need to convince me that you having sex is okay. So a lot of times I get the question all the time. Is fornication or sex before marriage a sin? Is this a sin? Are you okay with that? Why do it matter what I think? Now, if you want my professional opinion, we can talk about that. But a lot of times folks are seeking permission to do things. And the things that's not in my work, I'm not, a part of it is evangelism, but I'm not here to try to convert you with the conversations that I'm having. If this is your thing and you are, my thing is, if you are comfortable with what you are doing, how you are behaving, how you are engaging, you don't need your actions to be validated from anybody else. I call into question if you are truly comfortable, if you're seeking all of this external validation to make it. I mean, some folks may push back on it, but I want to move. So before I forget, we're talking about pleasure, right? I'm working on my segues. We're talking about pleasure. We're talking about Black women, the barriers to free sexual expression. One of the things, one of our colleagues, Dr. Lex Brown James, she pleasure sticker to help folks have to schedule their pleasure in their very, very busy lives. And they want to know, it should go here, it should go there. Folks talk about all the time whether spontaneous sex versus scheduled sex is important and which one is better and all that. But Dr. Lex Brown James, the couples clinician, she said, I got something that could help you. So we're going to cut to a commercial break real quick because, you know, we done leveled up on season 2 because we got commercials and whatnot.
Songs and everything, child.
We're going to cut to a commercial and let Dr. Lex Brown James tell you about her pleasure stickers.
Hi, lovers. It's me, Dr. Lex, the couples clinician, who said that planning pleasure has to be boring. With my planner stickers, you can remember Cupcake and Cunnilingus Day, Steak and PJ Day, International Kissing Day, with no problems. And if you don't have a specific day in mind, get these pleasure time stickers too. They go right in your planner and they'll remind you gently to have some pleasure. Check them out at Lex, L-E-X-X, SEX.com.
Make sure you all follow Dr. Lex at LexSex on Instagram, www.lexsexdoc.com. I think I said that right. If not, we'll add it into the comments. Get that right. And be sure that you allow her to help you schedule your plan. We have enough barriers as it is, as we see, to sexual pleasure, figuring it out into our busy schedules. As you know, Black women do all the things.
Chefs don't like to cook. Don't. People do me all the time. I'm like, listen, chefs don't cook. No. You ain't never seen a stylist with her hair done. Come on, don't do me.
But you hear the thing. People will say, "Oh, don't ever go to a hairstyle." Sorry, my children. They don't respect me at all. They don't. They're like, don't go to a hairstylist who hair ain't never done. But here's my thing: if my hairstylist is working, she ain't got time to do her hair.
She's sleeping.
Now my hairstylist, she's always cute, which I appreciate, but she does the good work. But I agree with you, Goody. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to our next question. The next question. See, Gmail is hate. So Gmail is reasonably not why. But I have my list of questions on the other side. So in your work with Black women, what is the biggest problem you've seen and how have you addressed it as it relates to pleasure and sexuality?
Well, me specifically, because I do the workshops, so I'm always teaching. I teach oral sex on a penis, oral sex on a vulva, partner on top. I'm venturing out to other stuff too. So I have a workshop for people with penises called Strokeology that's coming in December. Like, I am very much hands-on instructional. So the biggest pushback that I get is, "Oh, Miss Goody, I don't need that. I don't need that class. I know how to do." Listen, I assume you know your way around sex before you get to me. Okay. I am the razzle dazzle committee. Okay. I am, when you learn a line dance, you learn it the way they teach it to you, right? You just the regular 1, 2, and then once you get it, you start spinning and popping and you facing a whole nother direction in the whole rest of the club. Like, I am the spins and the pops. Okay. And so I have to tell people on a regular basis that I am the spins and the pops. I am not going to give you information that you already think that you know. And if I talk about something that you think that you know, I'm going to frame it. Y'all know how I'm about science and hoe shit. I am going to frame it, explain why what you do that feels good. I'm going to explain to you scientifically why it feels good. And so when they at least get that part of the knowledge, they feel like, I tell them, you're going to walk away with at least one thing you didn't know. And so that is important to me. So people typically think because they're fucking, they don't need my help. Well, I'm having sex, so I don't need your help. And it's not about that. It's about learning things that help you have even more better sex, healthier sex, safer sex, more satisfying sex than you were having before. Not that it was bad, but it could be better. And that people think that I'm always trying to like shade their existing sex life, and that's not the case. It's a yes and situation.
Well, I will say a lot of the concerns that I have had around for some reason is masturbation, um, which is very interesting. But I can understand because we've been taught for so long that we're not supposed to touch ourselves, that we're supposed to leave that for our partners to do and stroke. So a lot of people have a lot of questions about, okay, sex toys. I'm not a sex toy reviewer. Like I leave that to, Goody and other people. However, understanding that masturbation is a normal, healthy part of our lives, right? And it's something that can bring stress relief, and it's something to help us work out those parts down there, because people with vulvas, it does kind of get like a user to lose it as we get older, right? So, as we get older, we move towards menopause, and we have, those estrogen levels start to dip, and things like that. Keeping that down there pliable and working it out, it can help us along, right? But I also just get general sexual health questions, right? So people wanting to know, like I think some of my most popular posts have been around like the color of period blood or the color of discharge and things like that. So what we assume that people know as being adults, right? When vulvas, like, you're supposed to know about periods, you're supposed to know about discharge, you're supposed to know about all these different things, but people don't know, right? So you get all these questions and these like conversations about basic bodily functions, right? When I started in the field, I was kind of surprised myself, but at the end of the day, I'm like, well, look at the state of sex ed in our country. People don't know these things, right? Just because you've laid down and had sex, or just because you had a baby or whatever, does not mean that you know how you look down there. That doesn't mean that you know how things function down there, right? So you have people who who are grown, who really don't know how the menstrual cycle works, right? That's one thing I actually learned when I was not learned, but I didn't realize that people didn't even know how menstrual cycle worked until I heard older teenagers and even young adults saying, "Hey, I can't get pregnant because I just got off my period." And I was like, "Oh no, baby, no. You are about to enter your fertile state." So it's just things like that, right? So it's like, wow, people are having sex and not really knowing how they got pregnant or the mechanics of that, right? So like I think a lot of my questions and concerns have been around about how my body works and functions, right? So that's really what I get a lot of questions about.
Yeah, and I think I'm leaning more towards you as well, Dr. Wendasha. Because initially, when I went to Weiner for my human sexuality degree, I did the clinical track because my background is in psychology. I'm a licensed social worker. I wanted to do therapy, but when I got, and my demographic being people of faith, I was like, oh, y'all don't really like need like a diagnosis right now. Y'all just need like sex ed 101. Like y'all like. You just, okay, so this is a vulva, labia, like, we use intersex now as a term. Like, those are like, that's what y'all need. And I realized that there were like strongholds, like whole family units, and where, I believe it's through God's grace that I've been able to impact just from basic, like, in therapy, they call it psycho ed, like just basic sex ed. Like, no, this is not okay. Please don't douche. Like, stop douching. I know grandma did it. I know it used to hang over your shower. And you would think in 2020, we don't got to have to do the conversation. And sometimes when I'm making posts, I'm like, do I have to say this again? Do I have to say, don't use scented feminine hygiene products? Do I have to say, check your the pads when you purchasing them, make sure they say unscented on it? And then like, low-key, why are y'all still selling scented pads? Like, why are we even still here? That's one point. But like simple stuff like that, at a 65, I work at the school district as well. And 65-year-old woman, I taught her vulva, the word vulva for the first time. like 65 years old. And like, and stuff like that, like just wows me. One of my clients, upwards in her 60s, was married for 25 years. And her husband, who passed, was her only partner. And I said, how was your sex life? She was like, I mean, it was what it was. Like, it was, it was adequate. It worked. I'm like, wait, adequate? It worked. And then like, when she began to talk about oral sex and stuff like that, she was like, well, I mean, I don't know how it's supposed to go. And like simple, like those kind of conversations I find in this work the most fulfilling. But I'm like, this is bait. And then I'm wondering, like, am I not, what's my skill level? Like, because I feel like I keep having the same conversation over and over again, but it's like, it's because this is what's needed right now. Like, this is what it is. Dr. Shemeka, how are you addressing, what are you seeing as concerns with Black women, and how are you addressing it in your work?
Well, definitely going off what Dr. Wendasha said, a lot of questions about masturbation. So that was something that I hear often. But one thing that's been popping up for me lately that I've seen people talk about either in Facebook groups or just other groups that I'm a part of is sexual pain. So Goody mentioned earlier that someone said that it's like a 50% chance if the sex is pleasurable or not. And so it's like people think that sexual pain is normal and that sex is supposed to be painful in some aspects. I mean, it can be if that's what you want, but otherwise, if you don't want painful sex, then don't be having it. So, that was something that's really popping up is, a lot of times people are even talking to their doctors, especially Black women, but also other women of color, talking to their doctors, and their doctors aren't listening to them or aren't diagnosing them with anything or sexual pain disorders. We hear a lot of, I've seen a lot of adolescents and teens talk about sex and how all their friends are telling them like, yeah, it's supposed to be painful. So my question box every time I'm teaching high schoolers and middle schoolers, every semester, it's a question is sex supposed to be painful? And it's sad that they're learning that early on, but that's something that's really popping up for Black women and especially, Black teens that I've seen a lot.
Can I piggyback off of that? We have normalized pain in sex, right? Think about the way we talk about sex and, in songs and music, like, oh, I'm going to beat the pussy up. I'm going to break your back. We're going to break the bed. We're going to do all of, now I'm not going to lie, I be in the club, like when I was in the club, I'm fine, I'm going to beat the, okay, we're dancing to it and fine like that. And, oh, I'm about to hit rock bottom. But in actuality, a lot of that stuff is not comfortable, right? So we're laying down, or we on our knees, we got our legs over our head trying to touch the headboard, and we're uncomfortable, but we think that's what we're supposed to be doing, right? Because that's good sex, right? That stomach, that pain in the bottom of the stomach does not feel good to everybody, right? That deep stroke does not feel good to everybody, right? And we need to normalize that sex does not have to hurt. Now, of course, there is consensual pain in sex if you're involved in BDSM, which you can get, engage in some slapping, breath play and things like that. But that's done within a controlled environment. You have safe words, you have hard stops and things like that. And it's not done to prove, how good the sex is. But it's like a person, especially in heterosexual relationships, that's what it tends to be. Like, I'm gonna knock the pussy out or stuff like that. It's like, well, why does it have to be a knockout, right? Why can't it feel good? And if I want to be slapped on the behind or my hair pulled, that's one thing. But you don't want to get up from sex like feeling like you just got ran over by a truck, right? You don't want to be burning down there, like somebody. Oh, I'm a F it till it's dry. No, honey, no.
And coming up, I'm 32. So for me, coming up, it was this idea, like there was like this social capital that was gained by how much you could take. And so it was like men would come in and just like do this like pounding, like no finesse. And then particularly ones who are more endowed, they felt like the bigger they were, the more they had to pump. And then if you could take it as a woman and you had higher social capital as it relates to sexuality. And then if you weren't walking funny afterwards, then the sex wasn't then the sex wasn't good. And a lot of that, again, I'm 32. This was maybe 20 years ago, this this thought. And I'm like, it's still in 2020. It's still like right now, like, and you still have those songs about, rappers having 9 inches and things like that. And then when you like look at like 9 inches on, on the rule, like it's possible. But when you think about the average size being, what is it, like 5.5, 5.2?
Yes, 5.5, yes.
Yes.
Like, and the thing, like, look at 5.5 inches average, meaning most people, and then look at 9 inches, you be like, you lie, like you like this, and and it's like the ones who aren't as secure in their endowment are the ones that in their acting a fool. And because Black women aren't empowered to speak up, and Dr. Wendasha, you said, pain, we normalize pain and sex. I feel like as Black women, we normalize pain in general. Like we are in members of the athletes in the Grin and Bear Olympics, like how much you can take. Black women are super women. Like the meme of "forget it, I'll do it" signed a Black woman. No, I get tired. This is too much. I'm not a superwoman. I am a regular human being who can do some pretty dope stuff really, really well. I've been conditioned. For some of us who have been parentalized, who were the older, if you were the older child, you had to, step in and do some things because of some, shortfall from other generations. And just because I had to do it, don't mean I should have to do it. And a lot of my skill sets were birthed out of traumatic experiences. And that you're not giving me a pat on the back because you tell me how dope I am as you continually pile stuff on my plate when you see my plate is already overflowing. And so I think we need to move even beyond the sexual sphere and normalize Black women saying no, or no thank you, or no I can't, and being okay with saying I'm not able. There's nothing wrong with you, Black women listening, who just you're answering the text message. Somebody somewhere you answer the text message. Somebody just asked you to do something that you can do. Don't tell them no. Sorry, baby, they're not gonna do it. And then you call, and if they take issue with that, then that's not a relationship that you need to. That you need to look at their relationship. I'm not trying to mess up nobody's house or friendships or cousins or whatever, but it's okay to say no sometimes. No is a complete thing.
And also, can we normalize luxury and sensuality in sex? So why does sex have to be like this rough competition? Like, let's see who can snatch whose soul, or let's see who can make who come the fastest or the hardest, or how many times. Why can't we normalize sex that is slower, that is sensual, so when I say sensual, that's appealing to all the senses. So it looks good, it smells good, it tastes good, it sounds good, it feels good. Can we normalize sex like that? Like, can we normalize taking our time during sex? Now, I'm realistic. I understand we have things in our life where sometimes you only have 15 minutes. Sometimes you only have 10 minutes, right? Especially those who are busy, who may be running households, job demands. But like Dr. Lex said, like planning sex, right? So planning that time to say, I'm about to have a sexual experience. I'm going to get myself ready to have sex. I'm going to take that long bath. I'm going to put on that nice lotion. I'm going to put on my smell goods. I'm going to rub my body down in cocoa butter, whatever you want to be rubbed in, right? And we're going to take it slow. I'm going to light the candles. I'm going to cut the music on. I'm going to, put my nice lingerie on, right? That's something that we should normalize. And I think it's also a part of self-care, right? So just taking care of yourself sexually is self-care. So really and really, doing that.
Yeah, that's one thing in my work I really try to centralize, because I talk about sensuality and sexuality all the time, and just trying to help people become more sensual and live sensually in general, so that when it's time to experience sex, you do so more sensually. Or even if it is something as, when you think about your sexual experiences and your connections, not necessarily making sure that they have to include orgasm, understanding that all sexual activity and pleasure does not necessarily eliminate an orgasm, and talking about the passion of being savored, but also the passion of devoured, right? There's passion in both of those things. but we have to, make sure that we understand all of that. And like when Dasha was saying, the sensuality of it and engaging in your pleasure in a holistic way and adding layers to your pleasure as opposed to just regular, hitting and quitting. Like even when in my rhinology workshop, right? One of the first things I talk about is we think about riding dick is like this. I teach riding dick like this. You are stroking your partner's dick with your body. You see what I'm saying? And so that's the difference. And when you approach it in that way, it doesn't not only does it impact your body differently, it impacts your pleasure differently, it impacts your confidence differently, it impacts all these different things that help add, again, layers to your pleasure. And also, like Brittany, we said saying no. November, November and Volvember need to coexist, because even no in sex, no, I don't really want to do that. We start parking Mack trucks and little boys. You know what I'm saying? Everybody ain't got Mack trucks.
No, everybody doesn't have a Mack truck.
And we talk about how penises come in different sizes. So do vulvas, so do vaginas. So it's not that she's loose or she doesn't have a whole lot of sex and she's ran through. She just got a bigger pussy than what you have equipment for. And that's just what it is. She has a wide set vagina. So it's not a commentary on how many partners you have before you, if she's loose, if all of that. Vagina comes in different sizes, just like penis does. Mm-hmm. So that's just not the vagina for you.
That's funny. That's funny, because that's that we used to stigmatize WAPs, whereas pussy, because as you get wetter, you expand. It's called vaginal tendon. That's a natural part of sex, so it's expanding to accommodate whatever you're putting up there. And for people who used to get really wet and expand, the people, especially a lot of dudes, straight dudes, would be like, oh, I'm drowning in it. Oh, it's like throwing a hot dog down a hallway and things like that. Yeah. But that's probably more to do with your penis size than the person who you are having sex with, right? So
the onus of that falls on the person with the vagina.
Yeah, but the person,
it's never about you and a possible inadequacy where you're concerned as the male person. It's always going to land in my lap as the person with the vulva. And that's even when we talk about church earlier. I think another disservice that church gives is that we have to keep this part of ourselves at bay. We don't have anywhere safe that we can admit and have these conversations without our faith being called into question. But then also, once we do get married, what are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
Can we get some marriage?
So that,
they don't know what to do because they've been ignoring that part of their lives their entire life.
Yeah, and we wait until the last minute to have a conversation, and then there's an expectation of this expertise for this experience that's been put off to the side for so long, for fear that again that we will step out or fall or all of those euphemisms that are used for that thing. And there has to be a space. I mean, we're not talking about religion, but there has to be a space for faith-believing people to have the conversation and recognize and really just foster the healthiness about sex and sexuality without fear of fornication. Now, granted, if that is your concept, and granted, certain conversations, maybe, trigger warnings, the content warning, all those things are things. Being triggered is a thing. So you have certain conversations, and you're going to straight and narrow or whatever, and certain conversations, man, you're like. And so knowing yourself, like I'm not in a space right now where I can have this conversation, which is okay. But then eventually, if we take the salaciousness out of it, the tantalizing, and just have a pure educational conversation, that changes the game a bit. So we're at 9:15. I have 2 questions, but I also feel like my last question is going to take up the most time. I want Dr. Wendasha and Dr. Shemeka to speak to us about your dissertation and your research regarding what you did your research on. But my final question is, what do we need to do as a culture? Because you remember, for by and about Black women, us, what do we need to do to level up? What do we need? All the things that we've talked about, all of the issues we've laid out, what do we need to do to take this thing to the next level? So, if you can answer those questions, but then work in your dissertation while you're answering that question.
Oh Lord. My dissertation seems so long ago to me, to be honest. But basically my dissertation focused around hookup culture, right? So the phenomenon among college students, where I guess a few years ago, people were all in a tizzy saying that college students are going around having these casual sex relationships, right? And there's this narrative that they were having these casual sex relationships. They're not looking for any partnerships or any long-term relationships or things like that. So basically casual sex without that expectation. So my research and how I got really interested in that, because it was really through a white lens. So when we thought about hookup culture, we were thinking about white college students, probably on that large university campus, going out, partying, drinking, and having sex with each other, right? But I looked at it from the lens of Black college women, right? And basically I wanted to know, are they engaging in hookup culture? How they're defining hookups, and their reasons for participating in hookups, right? And I found a lot of things in my study. So basically, Black women did participate in hookup culture, but for my study, they were participating in it for different reasons, right? And they were defining their relationships in different ways. It wasn't just a hookup. There were several different paths or different levels to relationships. So like, okay, we're talking, we're dating, we're in a situationship, we're in a relationship, and then different reasons for participating in these types of relationships or situationships or hookups, whatever you want to call it. Some felt that they had no choice because they were on college campuses and there were more women on that college campus than men. So they felt like in order to have access to that partner, they had to engage in man sharing. They're like, hey, we just like to have sex and we don't want anything serious. Or some felt that if they really wanted that long-term partnership, they had to start it off in a sexual manner and probably try to ease it into that. One thing that they wanted me to know, especially in the focus groups, is that Black women love sex. And they love it just as well as their white counterparts, because there was this idea that white women were looked at as more sexually permissive and sexually free, while Black women did not get the opportunity or the chance to engage in the sexual relationships that they wanted to without being judged, right? Because Black women from the jump, we have to always, for those who desire long-term partnerships or heterosexual relationships, so that's the context I want to give, because I know how some people are like, oh, not everybody, but in the context of what my study was, they had to think about being marriage material from the jump, right? You go to college, you want to explore, you're learning your way, you're in this idea of emerging adulthood, but we're not allowing Black women to get those experiences because it's like, oh, you're a hoe. And they feel like it's going to follow them as they go through their college career and probably potentially impact their chances of finding a suitable mate, right? So that's what my work was about. Also, whether or not condoms are being used when engaging in hookups, and basically relationship intentions. Are you engaging in this hookup because you're interested in a long-term relationship, or you're not? So that's what my research was briefly about, from what I remember about it. Like I said, that was all 4 years ago. You said the question is, how do we need to level up?
What do we need to do?
First of all, get out of other people's bedrooms. One thing that I always like to say is, like, excuse my language, what you eat don't make me shit. Okay, what you're doing in your bedroom is not impacting what I'm doing in my bedroom, right? Who you're having sex with is not impacting who I'm having sex with, unless you're having sex with my spouse or something. Then we need to talk about what's going on with that. But you know what I'm saying? Your sexual practices have nothing to do with my day-to-day sexual practices. That's one thing. We need to be being so concerned about how people are getting down in their bedrooms, and they're projecting your insecurities on those people. So just because somebody chooses to have sex with whoever or engage in whatever sexual activities, or even when it comes to a person's sexual identity, orientation, gender identity. Now you're projecting your insecurities on them and feel like, oh, you're tainting the Black community, or you're tainting how people look at us, or you're engaging in white people shit and all that stuff. Like, no, you're free to do what you want to do in your bedroom as long as it's consensual. You're free to live your life how you want to live your life as long as you're not impeding on the rights of others. And I feel like as a culture, if we understand that, we can level up and just treat people with a basic common respect and decency. Right? You like why do you care who I'm sleeping with? Like, are you paying my bills? Like, are you like, is this really impacting you personally? So that's what I really do feel like we need to do, and like quit policing each other.
Yeah.
We do too much policing.
Yeah. Thank you. Dr. Shemeka, your
So I'm going to actually answer the question first. So one thing that I think we could do to level up is start having conversations early, right? So like all of us are talking about how we feel like we're kind of having these sexuality education 101 type things, right? That are popping up later on in life. And part of that is because we didn't have these conversations early. And so I think either as parents doing the work around having these conversations, so, checking out sex positive resources such as Sex Positive Families, Melissa just released a new book, or even Dr. Lex Brown James has a book around to having conversations with children early on. And so definitely having these early conversations that I feel like honestly are lacking because people don't know how to, or they haven't even processed their own guilt or their own restrictions that they feel like they have on their own sexuality to have that conversation with their child. So I think that that's one thing that we can do to level up. My dissertations, I talked about it a little bit already, focused on Black women from adolescence to early adulthood, so about around age 30. In adolescence, I was interested in seeing what predicted their pleasure expectancies, also their sexual guilt. So I talked about religion and sexual guilt. One thing that was really interesting was that Black teens that felt like they looked older than their peers, right? So like, they looked older than their peers actually had earlier sexual debuts than their other peers. And so part of that could be related to sexualization, right? So that, Black women, I was or early bloomer, so I was definitely sexualized growing up in middle school and high school, and so some of that can lead to people feeling like they need to have sex at earlier ages. So that was something that really stood out. But one thing that I wanted to point out was that, and this goes back to pain, was that about 23% of all of the Black teens all the Black teens in my sample said that sex would be pleasurable. Like, that's a problem. We need to fix that and have these conversations. And then in the adult sample, I was just really focused on orgasm rate and if they initiated sex with their partner. And so within that sample, I saw that 61% of Black women had an orgasm more than half the time they had sex. So that's 39% that didn't. And that most Black women were initiating sex as often as their male counterparts, because these were heterosexual relationships, but only 80% initiated sex more. Maybe that comes into like some type of power dynamic where male partners were definitely initiating sex more, but then we also saw it was kind of like an equal initiation. But my research is about to shift and focus more on sexual pain, because that's something that I see that is really prevalent right now among Black women, especially premenopausal women, that's not being talked about. And so that's where my research is going to shift. But I mean, I think the work that I've done and even the work that Dr. Wendasha has done really highlights the importance of sex positive research. I think a lot of times in the Black community, we were focused so much on HIV prevention and STI prevention that we forget all the pieces of us. And that's because honestly, white people don't fund anything that's not STI or HIV prevention. And so we're forgetting these pieces. And so I was recently on a paper with my mentor, Dr. Candace Hargons. And in our paper, we found that in 2003, that was the first time a sex positive study on Black women was published.
Wow.
Sex research has been around for forever. So definitely trying to fill some of those gaps in my work.
Wow. Thank you, Dr. Shemeka. So Goody, we on our way. You and I on our way to the doctorness of it all. So I asked you about this. So I want you to answer, like, if you were writing a dissertation today, what do you think you will want to contribute to the field as it relates to Black women? And then how do we as a culture need to level up? And then after you're done, I will close us out.
Okay. I've been thinking about this since I saw the questions in the Gmail because I got away. But I think my research would be more geared toward parents and mothers specifically, and the messaging that they give their children, both male and female, about sex, because we are a direct representation of how we were raised and how we show up in the world and how we show up in our relationships, romantic and otherwise. It's a direct correlation of how we were raised and how we were brought up. And so I would like to talk about or investigate the sex positivity that is actually happening in our homes, because we are planting seeds for trees that we are never going to sit under. That's what parenting is. And so I really want to examine what that looks like. And a lot of parents feel like they're sex positive. Oh, I have an open door policy. I have this, I have that. But they see how you react to certain things in the news cycle or on social media, or you assume that they're straight and they may not be. And so I really want to investigate what's already being done by parents, Black parents specifically, Black mothers, because we tend to project how we were raised and we perpetuate those cycles a lot of times. I really feel like I'm blessed because the way we will level up is to be the parent that we wish we'd had.
Jesus.
Be the parent that you'd wish that you needed, right? And so I'm very grateful for the fact that I recognized that early in life, and I've been a parent longer than I'm willing to admit. I've always been taking care of somebody my entire life. And I think even if you don't have biological children, we have influence over children. We the aunties out here, you know what I'm saying? And so I think no matter what type of way that you impact or influence children, they're watching us. And we want to be on the right side of history. Everybody talking about the way we're talking about our foremothers now, we're giving them grace, right? We do know that the way they were handled is part of the problem. And so we have to then be part of the solution. Like I said, planting trees for seeds that we are never going to sit under. And we have to make a shift from control to guidance as our parenting philosophy. It can't be control, because control, I think a lot of why we control our children is for their safety back in the day, now too, but it was a little bit more overt then. And also, like, the white people controlled us. Right. So that we had to go control them, and it's just trickle down control. And we need to shift that narrative to guidance to empower our children to break the generational curses that we already got in our families, sexual and non-sexual, right? And that's, to me, that's what it's going to be. It's the mind shift of we have to be who we will be, period.
Yes. If you say that respectfully, they don't care at all. Oh, listen, this is now. Listen, I don't know how to guide this. I'm finna control that thing to bed when this is over. So because I said go in your room and don't come out until I get you. This is the third time he came out here. He thought I don't understand what's happening here. But anyway, this has been absolutely amazing. I knew I could not have opened season 2 without you all, particularly around this topic. You are the foremost voices about this conversation. If you do not know, at Dr. Shemeka, at The Sensible Sexpert, at Ask Goody, you need to get to know. I put all of their ads in the description. Dr. Shemeka had mentioned Dr. Lex's book. These are my eyes. This is my nose. This is my vulva. These are my toes. Is available on Amazon. And Sex Positive Families book, Sex Positive Talks You Have with Kids, is also by Melissa Pintor Carnegie. She's a founder of Sex Positive Families. I also put that in those resources. I'll put it in the comments again, so you'll have the links. But this has been amazing. Thank you so very much for taking the time with us and just being so candid and just like upfront with what we need to do, because we need to pull back the veil on all things Black women. The rest of I didn't even plan it like this, and because I didn't know what you were going to say, Goody, but you were, again, my segues, because episode 2 on Thursday, we're talking about the new frontier of Black motherhood and Black parenthood, and it's called You Got McDonald's Money? That's what that's what the episode is called. We will have Dr. Lex Brown James. We will have Melissa Petra Carnegie, and we'll have Mariota Gary Smith with us on Thursday, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Please be sure to tune in. And this is November 3rd. We are now 25 days away from the release of My Vulva and Me, the anthology, which is based off of these series. Again, for, by, and about Black women. I'm the visionary author of Black Woman. The foreword was written by Melissa Frederick, a Black woman, published by a Black woman. The artwork inside of it by a Black woman. Cover art is a blend of two Black, because Black women, we just work. So two Black women gave me pieces of stuff and we put it together to make the cover. And even all 30 authors inside the book are also Black women, because we just do it better. It's just what it is. Our stories, our trials, our triumphs, our trauma, because we have it. I feel like we have it double portioned than some other demographics, and that'll be out. It's available for pre-sale right now on my website, theintimacyfirm.com. Just really quickly before we close out, let everybody know, start with Dr. Shemeka, then Goody, and Dr. Wendasha. Let everybody know where they can find you, where they can stay in touch with you.
I am on Instagram as Dr. Shemeka. Also, I am the co-founder of the Minority Sex Report. So you can find us at the Minority Sex Report on Instagram and Facebook, and at the M Sex Report on Twitter.
Oh, I think we timed out a little bit. Hold on.
We here?
What was the question? Because I think y'all timed out a little bit for me.
Just tell people where they can connect with you, where they can find you.
Okay, so you all can connect with me at The Sensible Sexpert on Instagram. Also, you can find me under The Sensible Sexpert on Facebook, or you can visit my website at thesensiblesexpert.com.
Awesome. And Goody?
Okay, and I am Goody Howard, and everyone asks Goody, so I'm Ask Goody, AskGoody on everything. At Ask Goody on all social media platforms. My email address is askgoody@gmail. My website is askgoody.com. Like, I try to make it easy for y'all.
Also, and again, of course, I am at The Intimacy Firm on everything, Instagram. I try to dabble around with Twitter here and there, Facebook, YouTube, and my website, theintimacyfirm.com. Thank you so much, Dr. Shemeka, Dr. Wendasha, the Goody Howard, MSW, MPH, soon to be doctor, the good doctor, honey. I can't wait to, because you know, Goody's good. She's that branded, honey, them goodie bags and the goodie gang. I can't wait till you get the doc on there, okay? So this has been amazing, and we only 4 minutes over, which we started a couple minutes late, so I still think we did good. But again, I appreciate it if you all could just stay in for just a little minute. But everybody, Facebook, YouTube, thank you so much, and we will catch you on Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, YouTube and Facebook. See ya.